Welcome to Shifting TV, the place that you come to play with your energy, raise your vibration, take in new knowledge for you and your family. I am Energy Mama, and I am so honored and ecstatic to bring to you Jay Paterno, son of legendary coach Joe Paterno. Jay speaks to us about his new book, Paterno Legacy, Enduring Lessons from the Life and Death of My Father. I'm so honored. Welcome, Jay Paterno. Jay, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for this time. Thank you for talking from your heart about being a child of a legend and what that meant to you growing up and what that means to you now as a father, and for the stories that you are sharing really with us that aren't about football but are about life lessons. Your dad, the greatest coach of football, had so much focus on the field, and yet in your book you talk about the focus that he had when he was with you as a child. He was present with you. The presence that he shared with your own children. You reference stories about on the beach and how he really knew how to hone in that focus. Did he have a practice in which he learned this? Did it come naturally? How did he share that with you, and how do you use that with your family?
Well, he came to him over time, because one of the things he would say to me when I became a father was, when you were younger, I missed some things. I was there, but I wasn't there. And he was one of those people that always learned. And he said, Jay, when you get home, be home. I said, well, no kidding. He goes, no, be home. And one of the things that we learned as players at Penn State, every time we walked into practice, there was a blue line. And he would say, when you cross that blue line, you can't do anything about your girlfriend, you can't do anything about health problems or your math class or the test you didn't do well on. You have to be all here, all in on football and get better at that. And he said, but that blue line wasn't just for football. That's when you walked into math class. You had to be there for that math class. When you went home with your family, you have to imagine you're crossing a blue line. And he said, you got to put those blue lines all over the place. And it's almost like a Zen concept where people are being in the moment. And that's really what it is. And it's really another way of saying that. And that blue line became something it was physical and very visible to us as players. But I think about that all the time when I tell my own kids the same thing. Is, you're here with me. We're having family dinner. You can't worry about it. Or I'll tell my son, go do your homework, and remember, you can't be thinking about the video game you just messed up. You got to be in your home. And that's really something I carry with me all the time.
What a beautiful lesson, and you reference that in the book, this blue line, and now I can visually almost see it as I enter into home. It's like I'm going to be putting a blue line right there, stepping into home and knowing what those boundaries are of being home and being present.
Absolutely.
Your mom carried that presence with her as well. You talk in the book about her just graciousness of inviting people into home, of always having family dinner time. What you don't talk about in the book that's known to all Penn Staters is when everything that went down with your dad, when your dad was fired from Penn State, she took the time to write thank you notes to every person that left something at your house that showed their appreciation. That shows this true humbleness that your parents carry, that no matter how great, how known they are in the world, they showed true appreciation. What other lessons from your mom do you hope that your children carry forward?
Well, my mom was one of those people that wakes up every morning. My dad was the same way, but my mom even more so. She wakes up in the morning thinking about how she can help somebody else and what can she make someone else's life better. It's never about herself, whether it's in her involvement in raising money for scholarships, or whether it's her involvement in Special Olympics, whether it's her involvement in, she created a bridge program for kids who came from disadvantaged backgrounds, weren't quite as far along academically as other students at Penn State. So she tutored guys that played at Penn State that needed help in English. So she was someone always giving of herself. And I've seen my own kids now, my own two daughters, without anybody prodding them, I get calls from teachers and they say, your daughters are so nice to the special needs kids in our school. She gave up her seat at lunch. So and I see these little things that my kids have learned from their grandmother. Not for me, from my mom, and it's fun to see that kind of pass along. But that's really what it's all about. And my dad always, he read to me Kipling's poem "If," and said, "If you can walk with kings, you'll walk, but not lose the common touch." And my parents are that way. These are people that they're all state dinners at the White House. Yet when somebody knocks on the door, they come on in the house, you know, and they have them in the house. And I've had people who are fans say, well, I called your house. I couldn't believe your dad's number was listed.
Yeah.
And I would call the house, and I got your mom on the phone. It took me 20 minutes to get off the phone. She was so great. I'm like, 20 minutes, you got off right.
And those are the stories that you're sharing in your book of the Paterno legacy, enduring lessons from the life and death of my father. These are personal stories that you're sharing. It's not just about football, although you share very intimate details about being on the field, being in the locker room. So this is a book that captures the heart of Penn Staters, but really I see it as a book that this is a book of compilations of lessons for parents to learn from one of the greatest, most humble men to walk this earth, of lessons that he has taught you that you're carrying forward. Some of those lessons you learned the hard way. Your family was a victim of bullying by the media, and your children at the time were ages 11 and younger. How did you protect your children from that? And what do you say to parents whose kids are being bullied?
Well, I think the tough thing was, you know, and I'm very frank about the book, I'm not sure how good a job I did really with my kids and that through that. And there's no handbook for it. And when this story broke, I have twins that are my oldest children, and they were just starting middle school, which is tough enough. And, you know, they have, well, I was fortunate, there were great teachers in the school that were very protective of them as it related to this, as the story started to unfold. And then I was also fortunate that my kids have really good friends that were very loyal to them, very supportive. And so there was almost people that protect them. You know who your friends are, and you know who your teachers are, and lean on them when I'm not with you. But I think, you know, you look at what's going on in social media, and one of the things I did in the book is I share some very beautiful things I received in social media and some nasty things.
Yes.
And at that time I'm 43 years old. I can handle it, but I think, you know, that stuff that goes on in schools now, the cyberbullying, you know, what I've tried to tell my kids is, look, that's not a sign of something that's wrong with you. That's a sign of something's wrong with that person, that they have to lash out at you. That's a sign of a weakness, a flaw in their character, not yours. And carry that and have that strength within your heart to understand that it's not about you, it's about them. They're the ones with the issue. And I think if you can get kids to understand that, you know, my dad used to say his mom would tell him every knock is a boost. And if they come after you, there's a reason, because they either, you know, they envy you or they see something in you that they want, and they want to tear you down to another level. So that's kind of things I've told my kids. You know, whether it's sunk in yet, we'll know over time. But I think those are things that parents can use to kind of help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's great advice. That it is that little piece that's within somebody else. That they are shining it out in a negative light. They're feeling pain.
Right. And they're really showing their smallness, not yours.
You come from a household of many time-honored traditions. What is your favorite family tradition that you carry on in your house, that you hope that your kids carry on for generations to come?
Well, we, every night, I don't do, my kids don't get into it as much as I'd like them to, but every night at dinner we would argue about anything. And it could be world events or something as stupid as, you know, it could be anything. And my dad would kind of start it and stir the pot, and he would argue, and we would have these discussions. And you know, if it was something that everyone at the table agreed on, he'd argue the other side. And so he was always trying to make us see every argument and issue from different angles and make us defend them. And I love that. I just love being part of that because it was so vibrant, and it was so, you know, dinner would be done and there would be kids sitting at the table arguing with my dad while somebody else was clearing the table. My mom would be running a vacuum, and they'd lift their feet and they'd still be making one last point. And that was something that was every night. And my mom always made sure that everybody who was in town ate dinner together. You know, if my dad wasn't home till 7:30, we didn't eat till 7:45. If my dad got home at 8 o'clock, we ate at 8 o'clock. So it all depended on his schedule, but she made sure we were always together.
Beautiful, beautiful. In the book, you reference these lessons that are timeless lessons about making an impact, about standing up for others when they can't stand up for themselves. This book to me is something that isn't a book I want to read and pass on to somebody else. It's a book to keep on my shelf, to pull out when I'm looking for guidance as I'm raising my kids, as a book that my teens can open up and read a little paragraph, because I know that there are so many pieces of gold in this book that they can take with them. Is there one life lesson that stands out to you above and beyond all the rest?
I think the main core of the lessons was always, you know, he would say to us, you either get better or you get worse, you never stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
And take care of the little things, the big things will take care of themselves. And most of his lessons were always pushing you forward. It was never, you know, it was, you know, you do something great, that's fantastic, but now what are you going to do next? If you did something wrong, okay, yeah, you did something wrong, what are you going to do next? And it was never a, you know, he used to quote Winston Churchill and said, success is never final and failure is never fatal. And that's really how he lived his life. And all the lessons he gave us about those things were the same concept. You know, it's not what happens in your life that matters, it's how you react to what happens in your life that matters. And I would think about that, especially after all things that happened at the end of his life, and even now, as we continue to kind of fight for some of the things to make sure that the truth gets out there. I think about those things, you know, it's how you react, it's how you react, it's how you react. And once you cross, you know, once you're done with one thing, you know, you have to move on to the next challenge. There's always the next challenge. And that was one of the things about coaching is, you know, great, we won that game. We got into the game next week.
Your dad, how lucky that you got to be raised by your father who had these valuable lessons, who had these boundaries set within his own life that he got to share to you. But your dad wasn't just a dad to the 5 kids that he raised. I think he was truly a dad to so many of the players that came through. Thank you for your time and sharing all of these intimate details of his life, of your life, of sharing it, putting it in this book, and spending the time here with me today.
Enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
What a blessing to be in the presence of a man of such honor who had so much compassion and just carries himself in this presence that makes you want to have more. He's taken the time to answer more questions at energymama.com, including things like balancing work-life balance for families. What about football with the injuries that are present? All of that is on energymama.com, where you can get more of Jay Paterno. You can also get a lot more of him and his family's traditions, honor, wisdom, everything in his book, Paterno Legacy, Enduring Lessons from the Life and Death of My Father. I know that it's a book that you're going to open, you're going to read, you're going to laugh, you're going to cry. I hope that you get to have that experience and share your thoughts on the blog. Thank you so much for being here with us. All of the best from my family to yours.